I was, a couple of years ago, I was actually asking myself, how can I, or using these tools, how can I actually understand my work through your ears, not eyes? Can you give me your ears for a moment, please? Technically speaking, that's actually possible, but this is not what I mean, of course. Well, it's not the build of the ears. It's only part of it. It's not the design of your head. It's actually your experience, how you were socialized, how you grew up. So I developed the idea, the concept of the shared perceptual space. And there are kind of different shareholders, so to speak. First of all, working with tools, technical tools, there's the mind of the technician and the engineer. So the highly trained specialist in conceptualizing and building tools. And these tools, as we know, have concepts, and these concepts are based on sciences, mostly on math. So talking about space, these concepts are fundamentally derived from Cartesian space. So X, Y, that. Without that, we can't actually set up these 3D environments. But it's only one concept that is working on the production of space. Was when you are entering this field, you are actually destroying everything. Because the concept is derived from someone sitting there, something that was called the sweet spot one day, which is actually a bitter, sour idea of someone not moving and being fixed into a Cartesian cage.
What is the sweet spot?
The sweet spot is the idea of a perfect listening situation where the math starts or ends, here, so to speak. Of course, the idea is that it's bigger, but this is not the point. Maybe you want to walk around. Maybe there are people sitting in groups, but they want to change seats, or they want to turn around or something like that, and it's gone.
Is it possible to enlarge the sweet spot?
Yes, it's possible. Of course, everyone is working on that. So one part of the shareholders are working on that, but their listening is trained technically. Whereas you come in and you're probably from a completely different field. You're looking around. As we know, our visual perception actually strongly influencing how we're listening or what we get out of the audio information. So there's a social space going on at the same time. So there's a historical spatial conception going on at the same time. There's a linguistic space going on at the same time. How would you describe the phenomena you experiencing? And so I'm referring here to Martin Turing's, he's a linguist, Martin Turing's n spaces. It's actually, the equation is n spaces actually equals the shared perceptual space. So he's saying that there's not one space. There's always many spaces interacting at the same time. And only if we consider that, actually we can, that's my statement now, as artists, work on a more or less shared perception. Not saying that I want to squeeze everyone inside, like in cinema. The idea of cinema never worked, but the idea of cinema with Dolby Surround is that you have a standardized format and everyone is actually experiencing the same. This is not what I mean. By claiming, it's a strategy, that there is a shared perceptual space. I'm trying to find out the variety of perceptions possible. You know, it's the other way around. But I feel, for my work, that this is very important, because otherwise I'm just throwing around sounds. Yeah, just like, it's very playful and it's joyful for a while, but I'm doing this for quite a while now. And then you're coming to, as everyone, you come up with the subtleties, and you know, oh, I can reproduce that. And then you find out, no, I can't reproduce it in this environment, but with that. So you advance in a way. And because of that, I found, okay, I want to understand what you bring to my composition and get out of it. What I probably, maybe I have no idea when I'm doing this, but maybe I can get something for the process, more information. The other way around, I'm working with engineers, audio engineers and scientists for the past 15 years. And it turned out that without forcing them, they got a lot of information out of my knowledge, my perception, my background, my history of listening, of composing, of dealing with their tools. So that's the idea of N spaces, that we say, okay, we had in the past 100 years, it was actually kind of the age of space. Before that, we were not talking about space so much. We were talking about time all the time. But not only since Einstein, but definitely since then, we know that a space is not a cage. And I find this is very, very different today, because we are defining spaces with the media every day, and we have a lack of space nowadays. Yeah? I remember 15 years ago, when you were walking through city centers like Berlin, it felt like, wow, space. Now you feel like, ugh, it's not so space.
Why is that?
Because our society is changing. Changing because lots of people are squeezing into the cities nowadays. Well, that's not the explanation. One explanation is that the media we're using are actually that we are in a situation where the spatial definition of everyday life is actually not so much happening by the places that architects, for example, are building for us or for themselves. It's actually by the things we're reading, by Instagram, what we're watching, those like. So we always relate to the stimuli. That we are surrounded. So text information, visual information, and of course sound. And if you go back to the 80s, the media was dealing with spaces in videos, like MTV videos, completely different than nowadays, like Facebook or YouTube. And all this is actually leading. I mean, this is very broad. I'm talking now, but we can't go deeper into that. But I'm absolutely convinced that the way we're using technology nowadays is actually triggering our idea of space, and that means how we relate or interact. Yeah? What is close? What is too close? What is far away? What is farther away? This is we're not dealing this anymore like in a one-to-one situation. It's pre-dealt in the media that we consume. Yeah. And I find this very, very interesting, because everyone is now talking about VR. It's the third time in 20 years, but because of Oculus and the industry, now it's there. In a couple of years, most of it will be VR. We're talking about spaces in Facebook now. There's Facebook spaces now. So it is relevant, But how do we deal with that? It's the first time that we actually, no, it's not the first time, but it's the time when we really have the power, and I mean every one of us, to decide in for example, with loudspeaker environments or virtual environments per se, how we want to create these spaces. It's not only the architect, it's not only the scenographer, it's not only the street planner, it's not only the politician. You have now software at your hand. It's kind of very crucial situation, I feel. How we deal with this information. I mean, yesterday was Brexit Day, wasn't it? How do we deal with information about decisions on the future of space? Europe, the space of Europe has been severely changed by how media dealt with information and people.
Right.
You know, so this is not. It's not far-fetched. It's there every day, and I'm just someone who's interested in sound as something that is everywhere, that we can't get rid of. Even if I make something like that, I hear, I receive, I perceive sound, or like waves, and they're everywhere. But talking about ambisonics again, and sound environments. It's actually this kind of subtleties, to come back to that I find so interesting, because we are able to, for a moment, to get out of this cliche like, oh, this is a car, it sounds absolutely amazing, to do something that's nothing to do with what's going on out there, but happening in situ here, in between the loudspeakers, between you and me, sharing this sculptural element. And you say, wow, is this happening? Yeah, and it's just in front of me. And this is sound. How can this be? Wondrous miracles. Yeah, we should produce miracles again. We should actually work on concrete utopia. And I'm so hopeful at the moment that we can gather this information